Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our discussion for the subject hardware and software installation. This is our second topic. Before we are discussing about the basic information about computer system and the 5S in the workplace. I intend to include in the first topic the 5S because that is very important, because in everything that we do we have to emphasize safety in our workplace. So again, a sort of review, what are the 5S in our workplace that we need to observe. So those are sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. So those S should be emphasized and should be observed and practiced every time we do our activity, especially in dealing with computer in the workplace, because computer is actually an electronic devices or an electronic device. So we need to be careful because we are dealing with electricity, and we know the fact that what is the effect of electricity to us if in case that will not be handled properly. So first thing first, we need to sort everything in our workplace. We have to arrange everything in order. Next is set in order. So you have to classify everything based on its function and uses. Next is shine. Shine, it is very important that every time that we work, we need to see to it that the workplace is clean and properly arranged. Okay, standardized is we have to standardize our process. We have to make it a habit, and that habit should be observed properly. And the last is sustain, meaning it will not only observe within that span of time, within a week or within a month, but then you need to do it in every time you work with your activities. So those 5S is very important, not only in computer laboratory but in all laboratory that is being introduced and should be observed properly. So this time, in our second topic, we will be talking about the motherboard. What is a motherboard? Okay. So in the motherboard, or a second topic, we will be talking about the motherboard architecture and the main components of the motherboard. So we'll be focusing on the motherboard itself, and maybe we will be having the external part of the system unit. All right. So the brief view of the motherboard. So this is how our motherboard looks like. This is located inside the system unit of the computer system. Okay, there are several parts of the motherboard which is being labeled according to, we have here the white here, the four whites here. These are PCI slots, meaning peripheral component interconnect. So if you wanted to connect some peripherals to your system, then you are going to plug that into the PCI slots. PCI slots are the slots where you can plug the card for the peripherals for you to connect with your computer system. This one is the BIOS battery. BIOS battery is actually, it's a battery which is like a 25 cents size, and then that is placed in the motherboard. That is for storing, especially the system time. Okay, we have connector for the rear or for the peripherals. This is on the rear panel, which could be found in your system unit, and this is the CPU socket, the white here, is your CPU socket, and we have the power connector. This power connector, the parallel port, which is allowing you to connect power from the power supply to your motherboard, because your computer system will not work, especially your system unit will not work if the power connector to your main board is not connected from the power supply. We have here the RAM slots. The blue here are the RAM slots, which there are some of the motherboard supports 4 slots, 2 slots. That is depending on the model of the motherboard. Okay. RAM is random access memory. That is, if you wanted to upgrade, you can just add the cards there and then insert to upgrade the memory of your computer system. HDD slots, hard disk drive slots. This is for hard disk drives. Before, we're using the IDE cables, integrated data electronics, IDE, which is quite obsolete. But then today, instead of having the IDE slots, we have the SATA, serial IDE slots, which makes the computer process or the speed when it comes to transmission of data becomes more faster compared to the IDE slots. Okay, the north bridge, this one with a heat sink, this is the north bridge, and then the AGP slots, okay, accelerated graphics ports, and then the south bridge. Okay, so those are the main parts of the motherboard, which some or most of the peripherals are connected. Most of our devices are connected to the motherboard, because that peripheral or that devices will not function if it is not connected to the motherboard. Okay, so let us define first what is a motherboard. A motherboard is the main printed circuit board, okay, PCB, found in computers and other expandable system. So it holds many crucial electronics components of the system, such as central processing unit, the memory that provides connectors for other peripherals. Okay, so meaning a motherboard is the main board which all of the peripherals and other devices are connected to. So this is the most important part of the system unit or the central processing unit. So architecture of the motherboard. This figure shows the architecture. How is the motherboard working together? Okay, we have here graphics card slots. Okay, and then we have the chipsets. We have the CPU where our processor is located. We have the north bridge that is helping the CPU, and then the south bridge. Then we have the flash room BIOS. Okay, room stands for read-only memory. BIOS is basic input output system. Then we have the super I/O, or super input output. So in here we could have the serial port, we have the parallel port, we have the floppy disk, we have the keyboard, the mouse, so connectors. Okay, we have the memory slots, then onboard graphics controller, the PCI bus, the memory bus, and others. So there, this illustration is actually talking about what is inside the motherboard, what comprises the motherboard. Okay, these different parts are actually complementing each other. They are working together in order to do the process. Now, in the absence of one, then your hardware is malfunction. All right, so it should be that the different parts are working in order for the process to transpire. So this is the architecture of the motherboard. So the main components of the motherboard is divided into two. We have the internal and the external. Internal are referring to the inner part of the system unit, and external is, of course, that is the outer part, which is, let's say for example, the PS2 connectors, the USB ports, the parallel ports, the gain ports, the COM ports, and others, which is found actually literally in the outside part of the system unit. The internal part are the PCI slots, the AGP slots, ISA slots, chipset, CPU socket, DIMM, CMOS, and others. So those are the main components of the motherboard. So CPU socket, this is our CPU socket. So CPU socket is composed of different pins. There are a number of pins here that is actually connected to the actual processor. This is just the slot where there is a processor that you are going to place in that slot. Okay, a CPU socket or a CPU slot is a mechanical components that provides mechanical and electrical connections between microprocessor and printed circuit boards, or the PCB. Okay, this allows the CPU to be replaced without soldering. So meaning we are just simply to remove in case that the processor is not functioning, so it would be easy for us to replace. Make sure that the replacement is actually compatible with the number of pins also. Okay, that is the consideration. So memory slot, in here we have several memory slots. The purpose of having a memory slots is to upgrade the performance of our computer. So the bigger memory that we have in our computer system, the faster also is the performance of our system. So the memory slot allows computer memory or random access memory to be inserted into the computer. So depending on the motherboard, there will be usually 2 to 4 memory slots, and what determines the type of RAM used in the computer. And the most common types of RAM are SDRAM and DDR. So this is the ISA slot. So ISA stands for Industry Standard Architecture. It is an 8-bit or 16-bit parallel bus system that allowed up to 6 devices to be connected to a PC. So virtually all IBM compatible PCs are made before the Pentium were based on the ISA. Okay, so this is now the ISA slots. AGP slots accelerates graphics port, is a high-speed point-to-point channel for attaching a video cards to your computer motherboard. Okay, you need to have these AGP slots when you are going to upgrade your computer in terms of graphics. So if you want to have a computer which is good at gaming or programming and other graphics related applications, you need to upgrade that by having the graphics card, okay, the AGP slots, through the AGP slots. So the PCI slots, or the peripheral component interconnect buses, use a local bus system. This system is independent of processor bus speed. So the PCI architecture incorporates its own chipsets which links the local bus to the main bus. So this is the PCI, the peripheral component interconnect. So as I have said, that when you are going to have some devices that you wanted to be connected to your system, you need to have the PCI cards. So that cards will be inserted to the PCI slots. Chipsets it is a set of electronic component in an integrated circuits that manages the data flow between the processor, memory, and peripherals. Okay, it is usually found in the motherboard of a computer. So chipsets Then graphical device or the graphics, so AGP. Okay, graphics components are a part of your computer that controls, enhance how graphics, pictures, videos, programs, animations are displayed on your computer. So that is to enhance the capacity of your graphics in the system. So let's say, for example, if you are viewing pictures or viewing videos, programs, animation that are quite heavy, then there is a tendency that your computer will be dragging or lag. Okay, so you need to have a graphics devices. Okay, the back panel, connectors and ports. So this is now the illustration of the back panel. So we have the printer port. This is the parallel port of the printer. That was before parallel port, but now the printers are actually connected through the USB ports. Okay, printers are now connected in this part. So instead of having the parallel port, this parallel port will be used also in making programs like using the LEDs. Okay, so this will be used also for programming. Okay, dual link DVI port, this one. Then the VGA ports, video graphics array. This is for your monitor, connector for your monitor. Outputs, other outputs like projector, you can have that also instead of VGA, but then you can also use HDMI now. Okay, that is because of the upgrades of the computer system. Okay, keyboard ports. Okay, this is the PS2 port for the keyboard, and then there is also a PS2 port for the mouse before, and then but now mouse and keyboard is also supported by USB, so you could plug that into the USB ports in here. It's either on the back panel or in the front panel for USB. Network port. Network port, this is a port where you can connect your RG45 connector, insert that in your system, and then that will allow you to connect to the internet, or it will allow you to connect to other computer system as part of the network. So we have here the sound cards or the sounds, the slot for microphone, the line in and then the line out jacks. Okay, so this one. Next is the power supply. Okay, power supply, and then next is the serial number linking code. So these are the different ports that are located in your back panel of the computer system. Okay, so we are going to have, or you are going to have, to answer the following questions that are flashed in your videos. Anyway, these slides will be distributed also to your group chat. Then you are going to answer this and then send your answer to our official Gmail account, which will be posted soon. So all of your answers will be submitted through our Gmail account. Okay, so the second part is we are going to have a simple attachment or installation of some parts of the computer system, especially on the rear panel. But before that, I'm going to show you. This is our actual motherboard, which you could also see the different parts of that motherboard in our discussion. This one is the processor, the CPU. This is the slot for the CPU. Inside here is the CPU or the processor. To remove this processor, just simply press down and then move sideward. Okay. Next is just open this. Okay. Open this one and then you can remove now the processor. Okay. This is actually the actual processor. Okay. This is our actual processor that is composed of several pins, and there is also a pin here that would match to the connection to our processor slot. So this is our lock to mount after mounting the processor. Okay, this is our this is our north bridge. This one is our north bridge, and this is our south bridge. This is our RAM slots. This is our power slot or power connector, which you can insert the bus here for supplying power to your main board. This is our PCI slots, PCIe slots. Then this is our AGP slot. So in here we have the rear panel ports. So this is for for mouse and keyboard. This is for monitor. This is our USB slots here. This is our RJ45 for network. This is for our line in out port, and a lot. So in the later part, in the next discussion, we are going to have the actual installation of the motherboard, the processor, and other connections to the motherboard in the internal parts. So this time I am going to show you on how to install our rear panel connector or rear panel ports. So this one is our power supply, which is actually mounted inside, but then there is a port here for our power. Okay, this is our power cable which is connected to this end, will be connected to the AVR. This is our AVR. AVR is automatic voltage regulator, which regulates the voltage from the outlet 220 supply, and then will be supplying power to our power supply. Okay, why do we need to have that in the AVR? That is to avoid fluctuation of electricity or power that is supplied to the power supply, because in the absence of the AVR, there might be a tendency that the different parts of the system unit will be damaged because the power that is being supplied to the power supply is not yet regulated. Okay, that's the most important thing. So how are you going to do is, you are going to have this, hold it like this, and then plug it to the power supply. Okay, let's say for example, if you are going to remove this power cable to your power supply, never pull this cable like this. Okay, never pull the cable like this. So all you have to do is you have to hold this one in here, hold, and then okay, pull as you are holding in this particular area, because if you're going to pull this cable like this, there might be a tendency that this cable will be damaged. Alright, so the proper way is you're going to hold this one and then insert, or when you're going to remove, you have to hold this again and then pull. Okay, next is we have here the VGA connector, the video graphics array connector. This is a male connector which is having pins, 15 pins. Then these pins will be plugged into this female slot. Okay, the orientation of a female slot is like this. Okay, this one, the female slot, and this is paired with the male port that will be inserted to the slot. Okay, remember, never apply too much force in inserting the VGA cable. Okay, so like this. Okay, so if in case this will be inserted invertedly, so this will not be properly, or this will not be matched to the port because of this. Okay, this one. So hindi pwedeng ma-inverted siya. So you are going to look to the pattern of the slot, then you can now insert this one. Okay, after inserting, you are going to have these two lock. This one, these are the lock. Okay, you are going to turn this one to firmly attach your VGA cable, and the other end will be connected to your monitor. Okay, so this is our USB mouse. Okay, our USB mouse. Since this is USB, universal serial bus, you can plug this mouse. It's either in front or at the back of your computer system, but mostly it is ideal that you're going to insert that at the rear panel. Why rear panel? Because if you wanted to insert your flash disk, so you are going to insert that in front. Okay, because those are removable devices. Then we have also our USB cable, USB keyboard. So same is true, you are going to insert this in the rear panel. Okay, so insert that in the rear panel. What else? So in this part, the motherboard or the processor, we remove the processor. So after inserting the processor, we have here this one. This is our heat sink, the processor heat sink. Why there is a need to have the processor heat sink? Okay, processor heat sink, there is the heat sink and then the fan, exhaust fan, meaning because processor is processing million times per second. So there is a great possibility that your processor or your system unit becomes hotter every time that you use your computer system. So in order to address the problem, there is a heat sink that will absorb the heat from the processor, this one. Okay, the heat that is coming from this chip will be absorbed by the heat sink and will be thrown outside by the exhaust fan, and that is why the system unit has also the fan here that is to pull out all heat that is generated inside the computer system. Now that is to regulate and maintain the temperature of the system unit. Okay, so it is ideally that if the computer system is not placed in an aircon room, it is advised that you are going to have your ceiling fans, electric fans, that is to maintain and to make the temperature stable, which is suited for the computer system. Because in case the computer system is always placed in an area which is not ideal for the temperature suggested for the computer system, there might be a tendency that for quite a long time your system will be damaged. Okay, so this one is our SATA cable. This is considered as bus. Okay, computer bus. This is where the data is passing from and to. Okay, so for example, this end is connected to your motherboard and the other end is connected to your hard disk. So when you are going to open your file, the data that is coming from the hard disk will be passing here through electronic signals and then will be passed to the motherboard, going to the RAM and to the chipsets up until it will reach to the processor. Okay, the processor is responsible for processing the instructions. It may be arithmetic or logic. So this chip is very powerful. Okay, this is very powerful. It has the capacity to process millions of instructions per second. Okay, so you have to be very careful in handling this microchip or the CPU. Okay, so I guess that would be all for this demonstration. On the next part, we will be having an actual installation of the internal part of the motherboard and the external part to make the system function as expected. So I guess everything is quite clear. In case you have concerns, questions, please post that in our GC so that I could address your questions and I could answer your questions in due time. Okay, thank you very much for listening and watching. God bless and stay safe, everyone.